I always assumed overnight shifts at the self-storage facility would be boring, maybe even a little lonely. That's why I took the job. Extra hours, nobody breathing down my neck, just me and hundreds of locked units. The whole place is tucked behind a crumbling strip mall, surrounded on three sides by woods so thick you can barely see the moonlight through the trees. Even in daylight it never feels welcoming, but I told myself that was just because of the silence. At night, that silence isn't empty. It's heavy, like the building's holding its breath, waiting for something. I'd almost convinced myself the first shift would be easy. I brought snacks, a thermos of coffee, and a playlist for company. The manager, Pete, handed me a ring of keys and an old walkie-talkie, told me to just keep an eye on things. The job was to check for break-ins and log anything unusual. He said it like nothing ever happened out there. Maybe it didn't, for him. By 2 in the morning, I'd finished my rounds and settled into the fluorescent glow of the tiny front office. The security monitor showed the rows of unit doors, all identical except for a few faded numbers. A fan rattled in the corner. I tried to read, but the words kept slipping away from me. My eyes pulled back again and again to the screens. The storage aisles stretched away in gray lines, shadows creeping across the concrete. I told myself it was just the wind when I saw one of the trees swaying outside. A little too hard, maybe, for a still summer night. It wasn't until I heard a soft clatter, like metal against concrete, that I sat up. The noise was distant, but unmistakable. I switched cameras, trying to pinpoint which row it came from. Nothing moved. I hesitated, then told myself I'd imagined it. Maybe a lock had shifted, or an animal knocked something over outside. I almost turned back to my book. But then it happened again. Sharper this time, like something being dragged. I felt the prickling at the back of my neck, the kind that makes you check behind you even though you know nothing's there. I cleared my throat, tried to steady my voice, and spoke into the walkie, just in case Pete was listening. "Checking North Corridor. Might be wind knocking something loose," I said. And even I didn't believe myself. I grabbed the flashlight, the ring of keys jingling in my hand, and stepped out into the corridor. The air was instantly colder, tinged with the faint smell of mildew and rust. My shoes echoed with each step. As I walked, the rows of units seemed to lean inward, narrowing my field of view, until the world was just patchy concrete and the shifting, artificial light from my beam. Halfway down the corridor, I stopped. There was a heavy lock lying squarely in the middle of the aisle, right where my camera should have seen it. It wasn't broken, just sitting there, neatly placed. I glanced at the nearest unit, number 117. Its door was shut tight, the latch still in place. I checked the others nearby. All locked. I crouched, picking up the padlock. It was cold, almost sticky, like it had just been pulled from a freezer. I turned it in my hand, searching for scratches or signs it had been tampered with, but it looked perfectly ordinary. A sudden gust wafted down the corridor, carrying a whiff of something sweet and rotting, like overripe fruit. I straightened, my nerves jangling. There was no reason for that smell. Nothing ever got stored here that would rot, not with the rules Pete drilled into my head. I told myself it was probably a dead animal outside, but the scent felt wrong, too close, looming in the stillness like a breath on the back of my neck. I steadied my grip on the flashlight and turned in a slow circle, the beam cutting through the corridor. Nothing. The only movement was my own shadow, bending and stretching along the walls as I shifted. I forced myself to breathe, reasoning through it. Maybe someone had managed to slip through the fence, or maybe Pete had forgotten to mention a scheduled cleanout. Even as I thought it, I knew it didn't add up. I slipped the cold lock into my pocket and made my way farther down the corridor, listening. The silence pressed in, broken only by the faint hum of electrical boxes somewhere in the guts of the building. My steps grew softer. At the end of the row, I paused, straining to hear anything. Breathing, shuffling, a voice, just silence. Thick, and strange, as if the building itself was plugging my ears. I almost turned back, but a glimmer caught my eye, a thin line of light beneath the farthest unit door. I stared, heart thumping, because nobody leased that end row. Pete himself had told me it had been empty for months waiting on repairs. The light was too steady to be a street lamp, too soft for a phone screen. I moved closer, holding my breath, and noticed that the smell was stronger here, too sweet, syrupy, with an edge of something chemical. The metal door was old, its paint blistered and peeling. I rapped gently on it with my knuckles, expecting nothing. The light under the door flickered. Then, unmistakably, the handle jostled. It was a small, deliberate motion, as if someone on the other side was testing it, quiet, confident, not rushed. My chest tightened. I stepped back, keys in hand, weighing my options. I considered calling Pete, but I didn't want to sound like an idiot over nothing. Maybe someone really was inside, maybe a squatter or a repairman had forgotten to clock out. I cleared my throat and called out, trying to sound steadier than I felt. "Hello? This is storage security. You're not supposed to be in there." My voice came out flat, swallowed by the cold air. I waited. No answer. Just a faint scraping, like something soft dragged against metal. The light flickered again, then snapped off. Absolute darkness under that door. I counted to 10, frozen. My mind raced. Was I supposed to open it? Wait for backup? Behind me, a door somewhere farther back rattled, sharp and metallic, jerking me around. I spun, swinging my flashlight, heart hammering so hard I could hear blood in my ears. The corridor stretched empty. I forced myself to walk, not run, back toward the noise, every step deliberate. As I passed the units, I tried to remember if the doors had always looked so warped around the edges, as if they'd swollen or shifted. I told myself I was imagining it, that the night air was playing tricks. When I reached the spot, nothing was out of place, just the same rows, the same numbers, paint flaking in odd patterns. I checked the locks, tugged on them, forced myself to log the time and corridor number on my sheet, hands trembling so hard my pen scraped a line across the paper. Something about the silence felt new, heavier, as if the building was listening. I headed back toward the office. Halfway there, I stopped dead. My flashlight beam caught something at my feet, a small pile of dust and grit that hadn't been there before, shaped like a footprint. Not booted, not barefoot, just an impression in the grime. The front half of the print was sharp, but the heel trailed off as if whoever made it had been pulled backward. I knelt, holding my breath, squinting to make sense of the shape. My fingers hovered above the outline, close enough to feel the cold radiating from the concrete. The dust was finer than it should be, almost like ash. I wanted to touch it, to prove it was just dirt, but my hand wouldn't move any closer. I told myself it was nothing, some old spill from a mover's boot. But the print was too crisp, too perfectly placed right in my path. I straightened slowly, scanning the corridor behind me. My flashlight's beam jerked along the row of doors. Every metal surface seemed to ripple with faint movements, shadows darting just out of reach, the kind you see when you blink too fast. I took a shaky breath and tried to laugh at myself, but the sound didn't come out right. It echoed, thin, bouncing oddly against the walls. I started walking again, faster now. I passed another unit, number 124, and the hair on my arms prickled. The door looked different, slightly ajar, though I could have sworn I'd checked it earlier. My steps faltered. I moved closer, feeling that same syrupy scent clinging to the air. I tapped the door gently with my knuckle. It swung open a few inches more, creaking on its hinges. The inside was pitch black, swallowing my flashlight's beam. "Hello?" My voice sounded small, almost swallowed by the darkness inside. I listened, really listened, and heard it. A wet, raspy exhale, just behind the threshold. The sound was so faint I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But then something heavy, shifted inside. I jerked back, every muscle ready to bolt. I fumbled for my walkie, thumb clumsy on the button. Static crackled, but there was no reply when I called Pete. Only silence, and then, so faint I thought it was feedback. A whisper, stretched and wrong, like a recording played backward. My skin crawled. I turned off the walkie, stuffing it deep in my pocket as if that would help. My thoughts spun, searching for an exit strategy. I should go back to the office, lock the door, call the police. But even as I thought this, my legs carried me slowly past the open unit, eyes glued to the blackness inside. I strained to see shapes, listening for footsteps or movement. Instead, the emptiness pressed back, thick and suffocating, until the sound of my own breath felt too loud. At the next row, I stopped. The corridor in front of me wasn't right. The overhead lights buzzed, flickering in a lazy, stuttering rhythm. I counted the units, 125, 126, and froze. The sequence was off. Number 127 was missing. Where the door should have been was just a blank expanse of wall, paint bubbled as if from heat. I blinked, heart thumping in my throat. I backed up, counted again, slower. The number was gone, erased so cleanly it looked deliberate. A soft clicking echoed behind me, like nails tapping on metal. I spun. Every door in the corridor was closed, but the rows looked closer now, tighter, as if the walls were inching in. I forced myself forward, pushing through the thickening air. My legs felt heavy, as if the ground wanted to keep me in place. I made it to the office. The door was open, just as I'd left it, but the lights inside had dimmed to a sickly yellow. The monitors flickered. For a desperate second, I hoped I'd see something. Someone. On the cameras. All I saw was static, broken by flashes of empty corridors. No sign of anyone moving. Then, for half a heartbeat, one screen showed a shape. A silhouette, long L.